All right, fuckers, come and get me. Hey, listen, Donald Trump says that he's going to pass one big, beautiful bill. This is the name of this bill, mind you, that he's going to give all these tax credits and all the things to make everybody so happy. And we're naming this bill the one big, beautiful bill. You got to be kidding me, right? This is just a clown running a circus in Washington. I've never heard of anybody have such an ego to where they're going to name a fucking bill a big beautiful bill, the biggest beautiful bill. I'm like, what the fuck is this? More horse shit coming out of Washington to get your hopes up for him to let you down and fail you like he's failed America, like he has failed multiple businesses, like he's failed the justice system by being a convicted felon, like he's a sexual fucking predator. All the things get your hopes up to then jerk the rug out from it under you, when really, if Kamala would have been in there, the tax bill that she proposed would have helped Americans, would have helped people with little kids and babies and families, and not just a few people that work at, Texas Roadhouse with some tips. Like, that's great if that happens, but the real situation in America is helping families with kids. 3, 4, 5 people in a home. Those people need relief. So this one big, beautiful bill he's going to try to pass is nothing no more than to get your hopes up that he's going to try to do something and jerk the rug out. Magas, thanks for putting a whack job in the White House.
Donald Trump is running away from responsibility for creating the economic mess in which we now find ourselves, and he's not even done creating it yet. Take a look at this post that he made on Truth Central, where he said, quote, "This is Biden's stock market, not Trump's. I didn't take over until January 20th. Tariffs will soon start kicking in, and companies are starting to move into the USA in record numbers." None of this is true. Our country will boom, but we have to get rid of the Biden overhang. This will take a while, has nothing to do with tariffs, only that he left us with bad numbers. But when the boom begins, it will be like no other. Be patient. Let me translate that for you in Trump speak. If the economy tanks, it's Biden's fault. If the stock market is down, it's Biden's fault. If Q1 GDP is down, it's Biden's fault, even though Biden was only president for 20 days out of the 3 months of Q1. But if somehow things recover, if anything good happens, then Trump is the reason, and Trump gets the credit, and we should pray at the altar of Trump. Just wait, be patient. This is classic Trump. Claim victory early before anything has happened, blame failure instantly, and pre-claim credit for a record boom that hasn't even happened yet, while washing his hands of any current decline in the stock market, in GDP. Even though, of course, we know of specific Trump policies that are driving the current decline. Right now, not when Biden was president, not at some indeterminate point in the future. Right now, markets are slipping because investors are bracing for the full effect of Donald Trump's tariff plan.
As much as Donald Trump wants to blame President Biden for all of the horrible things that have happened since Trump took over, the truth is American workers and American businesses know exactly who is to blame for the horrible economic conditions under which we are now living. And that person, of course, is Donald Trump. And this week, we got even more. Tens of thousands of layoffs from just one company because of Donald Trump's policies. UPS, one of the biggest shipping companies in the country, in fact, all over the world, announced that they were having to lay off 20,000 U.S. workers because of Donald Trump's tariffs. They say that the tariffs have, of course, caused fewer things to be shipped. When there's less demand, we don't need all these drivers. We have to let them go because we're going to start losing money paying salaries for people who have nothing to go out there and deliver. And again, they were crystal clear that this is all because of Donald Trump's tariffs. So these 20,000 people that had good paying jobs at UPS are now unemployed, and it's 100% because of Donald Trump. And that, of course, is just one company in 1 week. We have also seen more than 100,000 federal workers laid off. We have seen the healthcare industry across the country begin shedding workers, going all the way to the research departments at major health institutions. So scientists are being laid off, teachers are being laid off, colleges are having to engage in layoffs. Other countries, automobile manufacturers are laying people off. The state of Alabama is losing hundreds and hundreds of jobs at the Mazda plant. And Texas alone has lost 3,000 workers in just the last couple weeks due to layoffs from a wide array of different industries. We are watching, in just a little more than 100 days, Donald Trump destroy what it took decades in some instances to build. And in 100 days, he's destroyed it. It didn't take him 100 years. It didn't take him 100 months. He did it in 100 days. 2,400 hours, if you want to look at it that way, to completely destroy the United States economy and put us on a clear path to a recession. The jobs report from the month of April is going to be among the worst that we have ever seen in modern times. Probably the worst since April of 2020, when COVID really took place and we had the lockdowns. But we don't have COVID as an excuse this time. This is just straight up due to Donald Trump's policies. So this, of course, is worse. I mean, most of the COVID workers that were laid off, especially in the hospitality industry, they ended up eventually getting their jobs back. That's not going to happen here. Maybe these people can eventually get their jobs back, but it could take years because Trump is not giving up on his economic policies. He's doubling down on them. He's saying, this is who I am. It's what I'm going to do. So we are stuck with this. And these mass layoffs that we've already seen, well over 100,000 workers across the country, is just the beginning.
President Trump is now calling for Democrats to be removed from Congress, furious at the elected representatives who are moving to impeach him. Sri Thanadar of Michigan has officially introduced 7 articles of impeachment against the president, and it is co-sponsored by Jan Schakowsky. This is what Trump said on Truth Social, that Democrats had got 2 no-name, little-respected congressmen throwing impeachment of Donald J. Trump around for the 20th time, even though they have no idea for what I would be impeached. The Republicans should think about expelling them from Congress. Well, Trump, if you would like to know why they're impeaching you, here is the list. Obstruction of justice, abuse of executive power, usurpation of appropriations power, abuse of trade powers, and international aggression, violation of First Amendment rights, like this right here, creation of an unlawful office, bribery, corruption, and tyrannical overreach.
Trump is trashing America, outright trashing tons of aspects that make America America. So you may have seen that in the first quarter of this year, it's just been announced that the American economy shrank. It contracted 0.3%. The European economies are growing. And Trump said, no, this has got nothing to do with tariffs. But, of course it does. And of course it has to do with the shrinking confidence that not only Americans have in their own economy, but the world has in the American economy. That is just the economy. The economy is a symptom of what is happening at a deeper level that is going to keep hurting America on and on and on. So firstly, of course, there's the tariffs. Then there's, as a consequence of the tariffs and related to it, making threats to allies so that tourism has absolutely bottomed for America. They're not coming in from Canada, they're not coming in from Mexico, they're not coming in from Western Europe. These people are not coming to spend their money in America. And these countries are also pissed off. They're not buying Teslas, they're not buying American products. Then you're also deporting tons of people and rounding them up, causing them to be fearful, right? So that takes away a whole chunk of workforce, a whole population paranoid about that as well. So again, for any immigration that you want, people from right around the world are fearful of coming to the States. Complete brain drain from universities because you're attacking those institutions as well. And then Doge coming and knocking out all of these federal workers means that ecosystems that the government used to support are now collapsing. And those ecosystems oftentimes support other people's work and other industries and other people's well-being that are all going to fall through. So you can see so many parts of America being smashed up at the same time, and the interactions of them are incredibly difficult to predict. But lots of people's lives are going to be fundamentally hit hard by all of this deliberate damage. Now, a couple of nights ago, I was doing live stream on TikTok, and a couple of lads I saw wanted to jump in on the chat as co-hosts, so I let them in. And I said, yeah, we're talking politics, we're talking about Trump. What do you think about Trump? These were two young guys from north of England. One was from Newcastle, can't remember where the other one was from. Oh, Gloucestershire, that was it, so not the north. And they both said, oh, we quite like Trump. And I said, go on, tell me why. And one of them goes, well, you know, I like him, I like the way he talks, and I like the way that, you know, he does what he says. And I know that it's hurts economics a bit because, yeah, we've had some problems trying to sell stuff because of the tariffs, but yeah, I quite like him. So I said, right, let me deal with first that bit about he does what he says. Certainly, he's an entertaining character because he's spent his life in the entertainment industry. He knows how to get attention, how to cut through. And he says he'll do lots of things, and he starts doing those things, but are they effective? I said, look at the tariffs, right? Tariffs on everyone. They're all going to come begging, they're all going to come kissing my ass. 90 deals, 90 days. And then he starts dropping them for everyone. And there are no deals coming through. But he focuses his attention on China. I'm going to get the world to isolate China, and I'm going to ramp up the tariffs on them, and they're going to come to the table. Ramps up the tariffs on them, they ramp up tariffs back. Do they come to the table? No. He claims they do. They say, no, we're not. And then so he starts saying that he's going to take those tariffs down. Right? So for all that blustering show, for all that he's a man who will do what he say, he doesn't know what he's doing. He didn't achieve anything good from it. He just achieved a whole load of damage. So I then said to these guys, so he's a bit like a bull in a china shop, isn't he, really? They kind of agree. And I said, yeah, and it's a big spectacle to watch, and maybe it's interesting to watch, but you know what? The China shop is America. And that's what's getting smashed up by the bull. So we may feel some of the tariffs here, but the people who are getting really hurt are so many different people in America when this big bull goes around kicking over teapots here, butting into a shelf of plates here. Like, he is just destroying the country. And you're starting to see that now in the economic figures. And, you know, it's 1 quarter of contraction. If there's another quarter of contraction, then you're going to be in a recession, aren't you? And when you're not getting the tourists coming in over the summer, and everyone else is rewiring their trade away from you, and importantly, American consumers themselves see that things are bad, so start holding on to their own money as they should, then that is a major, major driver of American GDP that's just going to go away. So, just to let you know, if you come across MAGA people and you want to argue with them, do not argue that Donald Trump is a bad man, look at his history, da da da. They don't care about that. But they still do care about their country, the economics of the country, the opportunities of the country, and damage being done to the US. And if you can use that, borrow that bull in a china shop analogy, maybe that will help get the notion through to people that the irresponsibility, the sheer dumb, oxen-eyed irresponsibility is smashing up the country.
We have some big news right now. Donald Trump has announced that he will be revoking Harvard's tax-exempt status. Now, this is a significant escalation in the battle between the Trump administration and Harvard. But it's also a sign that the Trump administration could revoke tax-exempt status for a whole host of universities and potentially even nonprofits moving forward if they are successful in doing this with Harvard. Now, remember the important background here. The Trump administration was negotiating with Harvard to find some type of resolution between the issues the two had with one another. Then the administration accidentally sent a scathing demand letter to Harvard. Harvard declined to capitulate, sued the Trump administration, and well, now Donald Trump is revoking the university's tax-exempt status. Now, here's something right-wing conservatives don't want to believe. If Trump is successful in revoking a university's tax-exempt status, that opens the door to potentially in the future a more democratic president taking this and revoking the nonprofit status of a church, for example, that's extremely politically involved. So this decision by the Trump administration will obviously have far-reaching impacts outside of just this one move. I'll do a full breakdown on my Substack, link to my bio, so subscribe for free, spread the word, and follow along.
Trump firing his national security advisor, Mike Waltz, this morning, only to then turn around and nominate him to be the UN ambassador a few hours later, I think is proof that the walls are starting to close in on Trump, and I do not mean that in a good way. I think there are a lot of people that would tell you that this is business as usual for Trump, that it's just standard chaos that's always coming out from the White House whenever Trump is the president. I actually think that what happened today is a pretty major deviation from Trump's normal pattern. Because I think that nearly anyone who has witnessed what Trump has been like as president would agree that one of Trump's most enduring character traits is his willingness to throw literally anyone under the bus in order to save his own skin. This is a man who would absolutely throw his own mother under a bus. And this was a pattern that we saw borne out over and over again during Donald Trump's first term as president. Probably the most famous example was Donald Trump hiring Anthony Scaramucci to be his press secretary, only to turn around and fire him 10 short days later. I mean, if you made a list of all of the people that Donald Trump threw under the bus and fired during his first term in order to scapegoat them for one thing or another, that list would absolutely be just miles longer than the list of people that worked for him during his first term that he's still on good terms with. So that makes how he has handled Signalgate a pretty major deviation from his norm. It's honestly kind of bizarre that Donald Trump has stood by every single person that was in that first Signal chat, and he's honestly doing that at great personal expense to himself. He very easily could have scapegoated one or many of the people that were in the group chat, made it very clear, I don't stand for this, I am more responsible, I care more about our troops' safety. He would have gotten incredibly generous news coverage had he done that. And I don't think that there's a single person in the world, including his own supporters, that would argue that, oh, Trump has just suddenly become this completely different person. He's just, oh my gosh, the amount of growth he's demonstrated over the last few years. Even his supporters would tell you he is the exact same person that he has been since 2016 and before. That's what they like about him. So then what has changed? Why is he not only not scapegoating Waltz, he's literally rewarding him and taking the fallout onto himself instead of deflecting it onto Mike Waltz? This is speculation on my part, but I personally think it's because Donald Trump has finally realized he has burned through all of the extra people in his orbit that he could use to replace the scapegoats. He went through so many of them in his first term. He burned so many of those bridges that there are now very few bridges left. And I think he has now realized I can't just discard people like used Kleenex anymore because I don't have a strong pool of people in the wings waiting that I can pull from anymore. I think that Donald Trump has finally started to realize that the walls are somewhat closing in on him. But here's what I think is the bad news. As much as I hate to say it, I do not mean that the walls are closing in on him as a good thing. Because if there's one thing that we know about an injured and cornered wild animal, it's that when that injured animal is cornered, that's when it's at its most dangerous. That's when it will begin lashing out in unpredictable ways in a last-ditch attempt to save itself. And I think Donald Trump is about to show us what that looks like for Donald Trump, especially now that his deportations and targeting immigrants has become increasingly unpopular with huge swaths of the American people. His approval ratings have tanked, and I think that's going to result in increasingly more and more unpredictable and genuinely insane attempts by him and his administration to change the narrative by throwing complete curveballs at the American people. And genuinely, I'm very worried about what that's going to look like.
Welcome to Arkansas. It's time to talk about Donald Trump's goals for the week. Let's go. You've had the worst first 100 days of any president in modern history. Your job approval rating is lower than anyone since World War II, and we didn't track it before then, so oops. The economy was supposed to grow 0.4% in Q1, instead you shrank it by 0.3. That's the wrong direction, sweetie. You want to go up, up. You know, that thing you begged your daddy to do when you were little, but that he wouldn't do because he was too busy drinking. You've signed some truly idiotic executive orders about coal, and the plant owners are just ignoring you, and they're going to close them in Colorado. You spent $200 billion more than Joe Biden did last year. Where's Elon? I thought he was supposed to fix all that. Oh, is he too busy dealing with this? Tesla's looking for a new CEO. Of course, they very publicly deny this now, after Elon saw these headlines and had a complete crash out on Twitter. Because that's what adult men do, crash out on Twitter. Or maybe this was the thing he was crashing out about. I can't keep track anymore. Tesla sales continue to plummet in Europe. Your other billionaire buddies are dropping the law firms that bent over for you and hiring ones that told you to pound sand. Americans don't like wimps. Starting to see some cracks in your party. After you refused to meet for Republicans in the House Appropriations Committee, they went out and made a public statement about how Congress is not the Army and you're not in charge. They're also talking about how your Medicaid cuts are a terrible idea and publicly asking for pathways to citizenship. Musk hasn't been seen around the White House in a while, and it looks like you'd already started firing people that he hired. Rubio got rid of Musk's guy in USAID, and Musk's friend who was running the IRS lasted for 3 days. 3. How many mooches is that? You waited until your 101st day in office to get rid of Mike Waltz. Because you knew what those headlines were going to be. And you're so upset about having to fire somebody so fast that you nominated him to the UN. You've been sued more in your first 100 days than any president in history, and you've lost 71% of those cases. You're such a loser. Speaking of losing, a judge in California told Border Control that you can't stop people in warrantless searches just because they're brown. The guy you arrested at his naturalization interview has been set free. Colorado Appeals Court told you you can't use the Alien Enemies Act to send people from Venezuela out of the country. And then your appointee in Texas said the same thing. Mahmoud Khalil will be allowed to argue that you arrested him on free speech charges. And since you pretty openly said that's what you did with your mouth, I don't think you're gonna win this one. You've now been blocked from dissolving the Institute of Museum and Library Services by a Bush appointee. You're in such deep doo-doo that you've already started endorsing candidates for the midterms. It's okay, babe. I'm sure you didn't pass any of those daddy issues along to your own sons.
Okay, you guys go get the coffee because I'm about to spill the tea. A question on everybody's mind. Can the ICC actually arrest Trump? Trump, secret deportations, an international court with a 99% conviction rate, and then Jack Smith. Let's break it down. The International Criminal Court, aka the ICC, is based out of a city called The Hague in the Netherlands. It was created by something called the Rome Statute, signed in 1998. It's not part of the UN, but it does report to the UN General Assembly once per year. And they prosecute things like genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and aggression. You know, the worst crimes on earth. Here's Jack Smith coming in hot, right? He used to be a DOJ prosecutor. We all know him. He's the one that built an airtight case for Trump, and then Trump's dumbass got reelected. Of course, he leaves. He's like, I just spent 2 years of my life on that. But funny little detail, Jack Smith, before he came to the DOJ, he was a prosecutor with the ICC who prosecuted war crimes. And guess what? Rumor has it that old boy Jack has been back over at the ICC. He hasn't been assigned any cases, so it would lead one to believe that potentially he is investigating Trump. Okay, and here's where things start to get tricky, right? Because the U.S. never ratified the Rome Statute, so we're not part of the ICC. But the jurisdiction for the ICC only requires that the offense happens either by one of their member states or to one of their member states. And of course, Venezuela's president is the one that filed the motion with the ICC, right? Asked for the investigation. They are a member state. And Bukele in El Salvador, they are also a member state, and that is where C-Code is. So the ICC can have implied jurisdiction because the request was made by one of their member states and the crime is happening in one of their member states. So even though the U.S. isn't a member state, the ICC still has jurisdiction to investigate. Unfortunately, we also have some little act that we passed in 2002. Leave it to America to always cover their own asses. It's called the Hague Invasion Act. Basically what it says is that U.S. president can authorize military action if Americans are arrested by the ICC, aka they could go over to the Netherlands and get them back. It also says that about U.S. allies. So say that ICC were to arrest Netanyahu from Israel, theoretically under this act, we could go over there and try to get him back. So this is where things get tricky. Even if the ICC were to issue an arrest warrant for Trump, on U.S. soil, he's completely safe because nobody in the U.S. is going to turn over Trump to the ICC. But if Trump ever set foot in any of the 124 member countries, see, the ICC doesn't have their own law enforcement body. They ask their member states to turn over criminals to the ICC for prosecution. So if Trump ever left the United States and went to any of those member countries, they could turn him over to the ICC. That's why you never see people like Netanyahu or Putin, you never see them traveling freely about the world because they would be arrested. There are only certain crooked-ass countries like ours that say, hey, come on over, we don't care about the ICC, you're an international fugitive, not a problem. Add to that Trump, because of his rapist conviction and his 34 felonies, already can't travel to a huge number of countries because he's a felon. That's why you see J.D. Vance jet-setting around the world. Trump's cute little pocket accessory with eyeliner, guyliner. So here's the totally funny part. Because Trump enacted the Alien Enemies Act, which is a wartime power, he opens himself up to wartime crimes, right? What a dumbass. And that's why you sort of saw him backpedaling going, well, I didn't sign that. Somebody else signed it. I didn't sign. No bullshit. He signed it. Under Trump, people were deported to C-Code, but the arrangement said that they had to be convicted criminals, but they weren't. The arrangement with Bukele said convicted criminals, no males under the age of 14, and no women. Trump did send women there. They got turned around and sent back. I did a video about that. None of these people were convicted of anything. No due process, thereby violating the agreement and possibly triggering crimes against humanity charges. Put your thinking caps on, because here's where it gets really tricky. The UN Security Council can refer cases to the ICC, even if the state isn't a member, in this instance, the United States. Because the U.S. is one of the 5 people that has permanent seat at the table, they also have veto power. But what could happen is there could be a special session without veto rights. Yes, under the right amount of international pressure, the U.S. could be sidelined and not be able to use their veto power to protect themselves. But here's where it gets extra sweet. This wouldn't just be about Trump. J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, the whole gaggle of idiots, they are all in cahoots making these war crimes happen, so of course they would all be potential subjects of prosecution. Bonus! And remember, old boy Jack Smith's not just going to stop with one name. He knows the system in and out. He's going to try to get them all. Trump is pissed off the entire world, who would gladly hand his ass over. And then also, and this is one of my favorite facts, the ICC has a trust fund, right, to basically help to rehabilitate people, to compensate them for war crimes, funded by seized assets or donations. This isn't just about punishment, it's about accountability, as in people who have been affected by this could apply for relief in that trust fund. As we wait to see what happens with Jack Smith. Would Trump be arrested on U.S. soil? Absolutely not. Would he be arrested abroad in any of the member countries? Yes. Would the UN refer the case? Yes. Possibly even without U.S. consent because of what I said. Would the whole damn gaggle of idiots be charged? Yes. And will other countries cooperate in hanging these assholes out to dry? You bet your sweet aspirin cream they would, now more than ever.
Late last night, Trump signs an executive order ending taxpayer funding to NPR and PBS, both who are under a 501c3 contract. And yes, they do receive millions of taxpayer dollars per year. He basically said if they want to continue, they can survive on their own. So here is the order right here. And let's see, Section 1, Purpose, National Public Radio, NPR, and the Public Broadcasting Service receive taxpayer funds through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, unlike 1967 when CPB Why do I have a hard time saying that? Established. Today, the media landscape is filled with abundant, diverse, and innovative new options. Government funding of news media in this environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. And might I remind you that the CEO of NPR, Catherine Marr, has publicly said that one of her biggest obstacles is the First Amendment. And this is something that NPR was putting out. So right before the election, they were basically saying that Kamala Harris was up 4 points, that she was projected to win. Donald Trump won the popular vote, but that's not even the worst of the partisan stuff that has been coming out of both of these publications. And here's NPR's 501c3, so they're a nonprofit. This designation means NPR is exempt from federal income tax, and donations to NPR are tax deductible, and they receive taxpayer money. The organization's purpose is to provide news, information, and cultural programming to the public. And to make it clear, 501c3 organizations may not do such things as make statements that endorse or oppose a candidate, publish or distribute campaign literature, or make any type of contribution, monetary or otherwise, to a political campaign. And that is because if you're receiving taxpayer benefits from everyone, if you're receiving taxpayer money, then what you do has to benefit everyone, not just your agenda, not just your side. And I think this is a long time coming. And it basically says, yeah, we're a free country. Your publication can be whatever you want it to be. It can be as partisan as you want it to be. It can be anything. You have the freedom to do that. But what you can't do is ask taxpayers to pay for it. And that's my opinion on that. Oh, and by the way, this not being political or partisan, this is nothing new. It's in the contract. The thing is, these institutions have gotten away with doing what they want for so long that they're not used to anyone saying, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. And by the way, this doesn't mean that you can't report on candidates, but when you're taking a clear side on something, when it's biased, that's a problem.